Greetings, everybody. So today I want you to think a little bit about simplifying logarithms. Before I get to the question, I want to tell you about something that I'll weave into this discussion a little bit. So we are talking about logarithms, and we're talking specifically about simplifying logarithms, and that's what my question is about today. But one application or one purpose or use of logarithms is that we measure the loudness of sound in something called a decibel, which is on a logarithmic scale and uses logarithms. Okay, so just like you see here, here's something that's kind of like what I want to ask you about right now, where this is simplified in a way that's consistent with the rules I've been telling you about in our class. All right, now I'll come back to this, but yes, logarithms are used for decibel measurements of sound. Okay. Now back to my question. Suppose that we need to simplify this specific logarithmic expression. It says log base 4 of x times y to the third power. And I want to emphasize that in this expression, the y has the power of 3. The x doesn't. The x doesn't have a power at all there. If the x were to get the power also, we would write it like this. We'd say x times y, we group a parentheses around it, and then write the exponent. But that's not what it says. So the y has the exponent of 3. The x doesn't have an exponent at all, except for if you were going to say it had an exponent of 1. Okay? Anyway, all right, so that's what we have. Now, my two questions I want to ask you are this. Which first step below A or B would be the correct way to proceed in simplifying this? And then my second question is, what is the final answer? Okay. All right. So two options, A or B. In option A, I'm saying that the first step here is like that, and then you can simplify a little further to a final answer. Or in B, the first step in simplifying this is like this, and then you can simplify a little further to a final answer. So A or B, which one is it, and what is the final answer? Those are my questions for you. Now, if you're not sure what I'm getting at here, let me tell you about our rules that we use to simplify logarithms, okay? So we have three main rules, and in order, the first one says that log base b of m times n, so that's multiplication, splits up as log base b of m plus log base b of n. You might think of it as, for logarithms, multiplication in here translates to addition out here. The second one says if you have log base b of m to the power p, so if you have log base b of something raised to a power, then we can bring that power out front, and we could write it as p the power times log base b of m. Okay. Now, those are the two that are somehow involved in simplifying this, because we have multiplication, x times y to the third power, and we have a power because we have y to the third power. The difference here is the order. Like here I'm thinking, well, I've got the power. The power says, or the rule says I can bring the power out front. So can I take that 3 and put it out here, as this rule seems to suggest? Is that the right way to go? Is that the right first step? And with the other one, I'm saying that, well, first rule says log base b of one thing times another, m times n. Well, we can split up the multiplication on the inside to an addition on the outside. So since this is x times y to the third power, should I proceed as my first step by saying, like, well, okay, we'll split it up into addition, log base 4 of x plus log base 4 of y to the third power, and then simplify to a final answer. Okay, so that's my concern, is like, which one of these rules is applicable first? Like, which one should I use first? What's the correct first step? Okay, there is a third rule that's not applicable in our problem. It says log base b of m divided by n is log base b of m minus log base b of n. In other words, you might say that for logarithms, division in here translates to subtraction out there. But we don't have a division, so this rule might be perfectly valid on its own. It's not applicable in my example. Okay, so that's the big picture in addition to my questions. So you tell me, if I was going to simplify this, which first step would be correct, A or B? And then if you can tell me that, what is the final answer if you reduce it all the way as much as possible from there. Okay, everybody, here's my follow-up to my prompt where I ask you that if we needed to simplify something like this right here, how should we proceed? Meaning, which one of these has a correct first step, and then can we finish this off into the final answer? Okay. All right. And my thinking was that either of these might seem reasonable, and one of them is a mistake, but they each reflect the use of these rules, that for logarithms, multiplication here amounts to addition out there like that, and if we have an exponent or a power, we could move it out front. So with this one, it's like we move the exponent out front, and there it is, 3 right there, as this rule seems to indicate. And then with this one, I've used this rule first, where we have multiplication, x times y to the 3rd power, and that amounts to addition. Okay, so yes, we want to know which one would be the correct way to proceed. One of these is definitely not right. And the answer is that it was B, okay? And the way that we would proceed if we did this correctly was first apply multiplication to addition, and then with this lone term right there, it has an exponent of 3, which we would then move out here to expand it. That's how we would do it correctly by using the rules, okay? The reason why A is not correct is because it's not the case with this, the way that it is, that exponent of 3 applies to both the x and the y. You know, with this rule here where it says log base b of something m raised to a power, well, it's not true that the thing that's in here has the power of 3. The y does, but the x doesn't, okay? So that's why A wouldn't be the correct way to proceed. All right, now with that in mind, I want to give you an alternate example. Suppose it was like this instead. Suppose I had a parentheses to group the x and the y together, and then the exponent of 3 on the outside. Well, then it is like this rule right here. We have the logarithm, and then there's something in there that has a power. That something is x times y. All right. So if it were like this, we could proceed by bringing the 3 out front, and then it's 3 times log base 4 of x times y. The log base 4 of x times y can be expanded because multiplication like so is addition like so. But when we do that, it's 3 times however the log base 4 of x times y expands. So that would be 3 times log base 4 of x plus log base 4 of y. So it's 3 times all that, and then we would distribute the 3. So I want to make sure that you see the difference between those. You see how A would not be the correct way to proceed. With this one, it would be correct to proceed as in B, all right? And also that if alternatively it was like this, then we could proceed this way, and that's how it would work out.